Welcome back to another episode of Keen on Australia. We're talking about all things with moving to Australia, living in Australia, and life here. Today, this is one for our Kiwi listeners. We're going to talk about how you get your favourite fur babies from New Zealand across the ditch to Australia. We've brought in a specialist. We're going to talk to them about it. Now, remember, with all our shows, it is general advice, and we always recommend seeking out specific advice for yourself and your own circumstances. So today, we've got a special guest on the show. Karen, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Karen from Move My Pet. We've been pet exporters for the last 13 odd years. Yeah, I love it. It's, yeah.
It's very much you, that's for sure. So if people want to move their pet, how long do they need to really start planning for? What's the ideal thing for them to, reach out to you and go, look, we're going to pack up, move to Australia. We've got a cat, we've got a dog. When do we tell you?
So you kind of need to get yourself sorted a little bit first. So you kind of need to know where your pets are going to be living in Australia, ideally, before we can put a booking through the airlines. So yeah, as soon as you sort of know that you're looking at moving, get in contact with us, get a price so you know what you're looking at cost-wise. We can also give you the information then too with your pets. So if your pets have been lucky enough to live all over the world before they come to New Zealand and then heading off to Australia, there's some blood tests and things we need to look at as well. If your pets are just Kiwi pets that are moving to Aussie, then it's relatively easy. But just once again, just check in with us and we can advise accordingly. But going from New Zealand to Australia is reasonably easy. It's just, and I say it's easy because I do it all the time. And that's what we're here for. We're a bit of guidance.
That's awesome. And that guidance helps. And I also know, like with us, we had our pets looked after by kennels and whatnot, and then you organise them to get collected and brought to you, and then obviously you got them out the country. So there's more options for people that are moving than just the particular day the pets are moving, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, so look, it's a stressful time for all involved when it comes to moving. For cats, we kind of do recommend putting them into a cattery while you're going through that whole process, because cats usually go, hang on a minute, and that's when they usually vacate their premises and everyone's stressing out even more for their lost cat. So it is definitely advisable for cats. They don't do change. But dogs are pretty cruisy. They tend to go with whatever's going on at the time. So yeah, we can work in with you on what's happening and what's best for you and your pets. I mean, some people just need to have their pets with them all the way through, and we appreciate that. That's how I operate. We'd go with that. If you're more stressed out and you've got other things going on, which is often the case, then we can step in and become the foster parents for a little bit.
Awesome. And do you guys offer all the paperwork and the permits and all that sort of stuff? Do you help do all that, or?
Yeah, so between New Zealand and Australia, there's no import permits required. The two governments have got an agreement where we're able to move pets backwards and forwards relatively easy. Once again, if your pets have come from another country before going from New Zealand to Australia, there is a minimum of 180 days they need to be in New Zealand before they can move on. So just be aware of if you've come from another country and then moving to Australia, there's a few other extra bits you kind of need to know about.
Cool. And on the other bits and pieces, what about like travel crates and all that? Do people have to buy them, or do you sort them out, or can you rent them, or?
Unfortunately for renting, we're a small family business here in Christchurch. So for us to be hiring them out, it would cost the same amount of freight to get them back to us as what it is to send your pet. So it is definitely cheaper to buy your crates outright. But they can also be resold on once they get to Australia. Or they can be kept for your own travel if you're floating around Australia via plane.
Yeah, some of our friends just moved, and they've actually Bo's got his wooden crate as his outside dog kennel currently. So they've just latched the door open, and he's happy to go in and out of it, and they've just kept it for a dog kennel while they're getting sorted. So that worked out quite well for them.
Yeah, we do definitely recommend, especially with the plywood crates. It's it's a good opportunity to have as an outdoor kennel. They've got good ventilation, and the dogs are happy with them as well.
And what can you do with your pets to keep them calm and stress-free, obviously in the couple of days leading up and obviously on the flight over? Is there anything you can and anything you can't do? Is there any big no's, big don'ts?
When we're talking about dogs and cats, dogs, absolutely. Dogs, highly recommend doing crate training for them. The more acclimatized they are to their crate and they love their crate, which if you've never crate trained your dog, once you start crate training, your dog actually does like a crate. It's a safe environment for them. So highly recommend getting your dog crate trained. Once your dog's crate trained, it doesn't matter what happens with that crate, then the dog just knows that actually it goes in and it pops out and everything's okay the other side. Cats, on the other hand, definitely do not crate train with them. The more you crate train a cat, the more cunning they get and the harder they are to get into a crate. Cats don't do being told what to do. They are the boss in their eyes. So the more you try and struggle and fight to do that crate training, the worse it's going to be and the more stressful it's going to become, not only for the owners, but also for the cat. So yeah, just definitely get the travel crate into the lounge, let the cat explore it, completely don't have anything to do with it until it comes time to leaving, and then just make the whole travel one quick swift trip, in the crate to the vets, to wherever they've got to go.
Awesome. And I definitely agree with the crate training thing. Our Roddy, if you can't find her somewhere in the house, you'll walk around to the crate and she's generally asleep on her bed in the crate with the door wide open. So
yeah,
quite regularly she goes in there as her comfort space out of her own accord, and she doesn't want to be there. She gets up and walks out again, but it's not uncommon to find our dog laying in her crate asleep because she wants to be there.
Yeah. If you go into a wild setting with the dogs, if they actually really wanted to rest, they go into a den-like environment. So the only dangers potentially going to be getting them is from the front, and then they rest a lot easier as well because they've only got to worry about the one entrance. Sort of that's going back into wild things, but it's still very much what we're doing. In effect, the crate becomes their den.
And what about all the sprays and pills and pheromone collars and all those sorts of things you see on the internet and some vets and that have? Are they okay, not okay? Are they any good, not any good?
Yep, so we use Adactyl and Feel Away sprays for all of our pets that travel with us. We tend to find that they work. They're not 100% foolproof, but they definitely do calm the animals that little bit. The Adactyl collar, if you pop that on sort of a couple of weeks before travel and then have it going through, that keeps the calmness right up until they're actually traveling. So that can have a good or positive effect on lots of dogs. It doesn't work on all dogs. If you've got a really stressy dog, then you can potentially talk to your vets about maybe some calming or relaxing pills. They are accumulative though, so you kind of need to have your pet on them at least sort of 3 or 4 days before actually travel, so that by the time the pet's actually at the time of traveling, they're actually quite chilled out with these drugs.
Cool. And you drop your dog off, cat off, whatever, jump on the plane. They might be on the same plane, different plane. What happens with that? Do you guys let us know they've made the plane, or do you like keep in touch? And what happens with your pet when you can't see it? Obviously, every pet owner's biggest stress, it's not sitting on my knee. Where is it? What happens?
So it's a little bit like we kind of go on the ethos of no news is good news.
Yep.
So once we've handed your pets on to the airlines, ultimately our handling of your pets is sort of taken out of our hands as well. We're reliant on the airlines. Generally, most pet transports have a pretty good relationship, especially with the on-ground or where you're located. So in Christchurch, the team here in Christchurch, they well and truly know me. I know them, and they can get in contact if there's any issues. And they do pretty quickly get in touch with us.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And am I right that even the captain actually gets a list of the name of all the pets on the plane and actually knows whose animal where in the plane?
Yep. So part of the process is we do an airline check-in. So it's a little bit like you checking your own luggage in, except for we're dealing with a lot of paperwork instead with the animals. And part of that paperwork is a manifest is also created for the pilot. So he's got a copy of all the documents. So he knows your pet's name and where they're located actually on the plane in the cargo hold.
That's pretty cool to hear that the whole way through.
Yeah.
And then your pet arrives. What happens then? Obviously, you've gone through customs, etc. If your pet's on the same plane, or maybe one a day or two later, what happens? Do you pick it up somewhere else, or do they give you a file, or what happens when you get here?
Yeah, so once we've put a booking through, we'll send you a little bit of information on where to go and pick your pets up. In Australia, generally it's Qantas Freight that you're heading to from the port that you're landing on. So once you arrive there, they'll give you some indications on what needs to be done. I haven't actually gone through the process, so I'm not 100% sure, but there's a bit of a handling fee that's payable and a customs clearance, and then your pets are handed over once the paperwork and your pets all match up.
So for everyone out there, Karen actually moved our pets a few years ago when we relocated, and I can speak for the other side because I don't know everything that happened in the middle because it just happened for us. But once you get here, we got told Karen gave us directions and all how to find our pets and where we needed to go and what we needed to do. And she told us it would be an hour and a half at least after the flight. Don't rush. She's not wrong. Don't rush. It will be an hour and a half. The faster you get there, the longer you're just going to sit in a waiting room. And you just go into a wee room. It's at Qantas, and for Brisbane anyway, it was at Qantas Airport. And they get you to fill out a little bit of paperwork, pay a wee clearance fee in Australia, and then they bring your pets out to them. You put them straight in the car and leave from the airport. It was super, super easy. Everyone I've talked to has been the same. Don't rush to the airport pickup. What they tell you about the time it takes to your vets checked properly and through the airport is correct. They will not beat you there. If you get there a bit early, you'll just be sitting and waiting for them. So the forms you gave us were spot on, and it made it very simple. And the collection side at this end, I thought couldn't have been any easier. And like I say, we just picked the cat and the dog up and got in the car and drove home.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the only when you go into Melbourne at the moment, Melbourne, they seem to be taking a lot longer again for clearing pets. And it's a government thing, so we can't, if you complain, it ends up worse. So yeah, just Melbourne, if you get in your head that it's going to take at least 4 or 5 hours potentially for those animals to be released. But Brisbane and Sydney, pretty quick, very easy process. Perth is the same. Yeah.
Big tip for the Brisbane clients that are listening: get through customs yourself, go out the airport, get your rental car or whatever you've got, go down the road to the DFO, have some lunch or look at the shops. That will easily fill in your hour and a half. Then pop just straight back up to the road for the address they give you on the documents to pick up your cat and dog. There is no point sitting in a 5x5 waiting room with 2 vending machines for any longer than you need to.
Yeah. And with saying that too, also, if your pets are cleared before you've arrived and they've been sitting there for an hour, they're going to be on the phone to you. They're going to say, come and pick your pets up. They're ready to go. And that's at all the ports. They don't like pets sitting around as soon as they're cleared. They want to know where you are. If they can't get hold of you, they get hold of me as the 24-hour contact. And at that point, I start then feeding through all the numbers I've got to be in contact with you as well.
And that's the good thing with that mall next to Brisbane Airport. It's literally 8 minutes away. So if you happen to get it wrong, you're 8 minutes down the road, you'll be straight there. So that's a good tip for anyone going to Brisbane. The other airports, I'm not sure what's there. Obviously do some research on that, but there's definitely some options out there. Or the airport has restaurants and stuff as well, so you can fill in that time. What about coming over to Australia with New Zealand with some of the differences? Because obviously there's no ticks or anything in New Zealand. Is that something you can do before they leave New Zealand, or is it just easy to do as soon as you get here?
Yeah, so part of the export requirements to enter Australia for cats and dogs is they must be treated with a Drontal worm and wormer, or a Drontal, or one with praziquantal in it, sorry.
Yep, one with all the big words in it that looks after.
Yeah, totally. So there's just 2 worming tablets that a choice of that need to be treated with your pets, and they must have a frontline flea and tick treatment. Now that is part of the agreement between New Zealand and Australia that will use those products, and that at the time of the export certs created, the vet's signing to say they've administered those 2 products. Unfortunately, frontline does not is great for ticks over in Australia still. However, the fleas, they tend to laugh at it now in Australia. So we do highly recommend getting a decent flea treatment on arrival. The other thing that we don't treat here in New Zealand, but you need to be concerned about, especially in Queensland, is the heartworm. So make sure that you get to a vet, get a decent heartworm treatment as well. And the local vets to where you're going are the best people to ask. We're not up with the play here in New Zealand because we're not dealing with it ever.
And the good thing, you're right, is the local vets, it is just over the counter, like walking in and buying a bottle of water from a dairy. It is simply just go in with your pet books the first time, the wee pet Bibles, I suppose you call them, you have about your pet's life. Hand them over. They might ask you a couple of questions, and then they'll tell you what to put them on. And then normally they'll give you a supply of them that you, depending on what they are 30 days or 90 days, depending on the products. And it's super easy. You just keep going back to the same vet, or once you've seen the vet, a lot of the pet shops carry the product, but we prefer to buy ours directly from the vet because they know our pets and we take them back to the same place every time. So it is super easy. It's just something you need to be very aware of coming here, that we do have some different things in regards to your poor little pets that need to be looked after. I've had a couple of questions come in from guests. Sorry, not guests, from listeners. One person's asked, my dog is on daily medication. How will that work, and what happens when I'm not there to give it to them?
So we try and work in that daily medication to be the sort of around that same time that the pets are given that they're giving the medication, or we need to try and work it so we can change the times a little bit as we're heading towards the day of travel, so that we can try and accommodate that as best possible. We can send the drugs with the dog, but it needs to be in the packet or the bottle that the vet has given, with the actual label on it, administrating to your dog. And we also need a letter from your vet too, that will accompany the drugs, to say what it is that they're traveling with and why they're on it.
Oh, and yeah, I think that's pretty simple. That you just send out an email normally the last sort of time that you've given it to them, and then people know when they've last had it, and then they can do it later once they get here.
Yeah, we generally will see the animals the day before, so we can either work out a plan with the owners, or if the animals, we're looking after the animals overnight, then we work out when we can give it to them. And if it means we have to give the pills a little bit earlier, but at least the animals are traveling on the on their medication, we can generally work it in.
And obviously, you guys export to more than just Australia if people want to go to other places.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do the rest of the world as well. That becomes it's another whole segment really in regards to
We'll stick
requirements.
to Australia for us. I was just more curious if you did ship them all around the world.
Yes.
This is an interesting one. They haven't said what they've got in the way of a pet, but obviously cats and dogs are very common.
Mm-hmm.
Can other pets be sent here? Like, are there any rules around birds or fish, or I don't know?
Yep,
Is there any no-go pets?
Yeah, so birds and rabbits we can also do as well. We tend to try and stay away from it just at the moment, just with the amount of requirements and different cage requirements done for birds. So every species has a different requirement for them to be traveling in. So it, yes, definitely can be done. There's just home quarantines, and there's a lot of extra work involved, and it's yeah, it's just trying to work out with the MPI too, with what they're requiring. And yeah, it's a little bit more difficult. We tend not to do a great deal of birds for just the sheer cost of it alone. It tends to put a lot of people off. But there's been a number of rabbits that travel backwards and forth through between New Zealand and Australia. They can come through as pets as well.
So the rabbit one's an interesting one that I didn't realize till we lived here. Queensland, I believe, is the only state in Australia where rabbits are a complete pest and not even allowed as a pet.
Oh,
So
really?
every other state in Australia can have a pet rabbit.
Yeah.
And literally, we share a border with like Byron Bay and whatnot, New South Wales. There is
Yeah.
huge signs as you come in from New South Wales. Please note, rabbits are illegal in the state. Do not cross them over state lines. And literally, it's just a line on the ground. But I didn't realize till we lived here that, yeah, no rabbits in Queensland. Every other state in Australia, no problem. But Queensland, no pet bunnies.
Oh, okay.
So that was something a bit different. And
It,
obviously, we've got some lot more exotic pets here than what you have in New Zealand that you don't see coming this way.
yeah, absolutely. And with that, there's restrictions of them coming into New Zealand as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for all your help today. Hopefully that's put some ease at rest for all these people looking at moving that have got pets and all those sorts of things. I know how stressful the move can be. And then obviously when you start adding fur babies in as well, people start to really worry. But as someone that's been there and done it and got Karen to do it, it is actually super easy to move with your pets. And you probably stress far more than they actually do. So once they get here, they're very happy and it's very easy. If people did have more questions or they needed a quote to move a pet or something, whereabouts can they find you, Karen?
So they can contact us on our email, or on our website, sorry, www.movemypet.co.nz. Or with that, you can also get in contact with us via email and that too. Just when you do go through that process, though, no question is a silly question. You're far better off knowing all the answers and being comfortable with the process than stressing about it. And then you're arriving at the vet's stressed, your pet's stressed because you're stressed, and that turns into a bit of chaos. So for us, definitely, we're quite happy to answer any question, no matter how trivial you think it may be. I'd much rather have everyone being at ease and know what's happening than not answer the question and then really stress about it.
Oh, 100%. And that's the whole thing we've brought about with this show for moving. It's about reducing the stress. And
Yeah.
I highly recommend people, if they've got any question and they think it's silly, don't worry. Ask someone like Karen. She's going to tell you the answer and take all that stress away. That stress will then not be on your animals as well. So
Yeah.
I'd love to thank you for being on again today, Karen. Obviously, everyone keep an eye out for our shows as they come out. We're talking to a rental manager later this week. We'll get some information on them, how to get a rental home here. And then we've got some more guests coming up that have done the move and they're going to tell us about their stories. So keep on listening and we'll see you again, or find us on Facebook on Keen on Australia. You'll find more information there on free videos, free information, all on moving to Australia that helps you out.